you a good number. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Hope you're well. Hope you've had a good week since the last time we were here together. I know some of you normally follow us for the weekly swing. Then you disappear maybe for the rest of the week. But hope you've been well since the last time we were together. But we're glad that you joined us. If you're new here, John is my name. My trader is Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So it's not a one-man show. You can definitely see Mitch there. Mitch, what's good?
Good, I'm good. Happy to be here. At least it's a nice sunny day. So hopefully this is a sign for how the rest of the week will be, at least hopefully on the charts as well. So, yeah.
All right, good start to the week. And of course, guys, remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe, hit the like button, put on the bell notification. Of course, remember to comment and share. So, Mitch, if you're ready, and take it away.
Yep. So, guys, as usual, we'll start off with our watch list, or at least our weekly swing watch list. So you can see the difference between last week and this week. So last week, we were looking for selling opportunities on the Japanese yen and the New Zealand dollar, as well as buying opportunities on the euro, as well as the Swiss franc. So those are the pairs we figured that the big boys had their focus on. And the neutral pairs were the US dollar, the British pound, the Australian dollar, and the Canadian dollar. However, this week, fundamentals have changed, or at least the way the markets are moving in terms of correlation. So this will be our watch list for this week. So you can be able to take a screenshot of this. Now, our bias, or at least our focus this week, will be looking for selling opportunities on the euro as well as the Japanese yen. And we will be looking for buying opportunities, as you can clearly see here, on gold. On the US dollar. So gold and the Dow Jones are also on the buy side. However, the pairs that are on the neutral side, as you can see, the British pound, the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar, and the Swiss franc. Now, for those who are new, the way we do end up using this watch list is we will start off with one of the pairs that does have a bias. So we'll start off with the euro pairs, mix and match that with all the pairs on the neutral side. We'll not match it with the yen or the US dollar. We'll only mix and match with the neutral pair. So we'll do the same thing with the yen and the US dollar before we do end up finishing up this webinar, I guess. So as usual, we'll start off with a review. Let's see what happened last week in terms of the pairs we had, what we could have done different before we do focus on today's pairs. So you can see there's a bit of a gap, but that's okay. So last week, it seems, John, it seems like there's a small issue with trading view. Is it okay on your side? I think we're missing some data. Because as you can see here, this is, I think, from the 14th. And
Yeah. I think it's something with the yen pairs, because the rest of them, if you go down, they should be fine. I think so.
It found against a similar situation. How is it looking on your side?
Trying to open it. Just try restart. Okay, good.
Apologies, guys, for these technical difficulties. But sometimes technology doesn't necessarily always do us the best at times.
Some of them do end up having gaps. I think there could be something up with trading view.
Seems
like quite a number of them have gaps.
So let's just go through the pairs. We'll see which ones are okay, because I can see here the British pound against the New Zealand dollar does seem to be okay. So we'll just look at this pair. Maybe, as you mentioned, it could be the yen pairs. So on the British pound against the New Zealand dollar, remember last week we were looking for buying opportunities. We did point out these three areas where the buys could potentially work out from. Now, at the beginning of the week, the price looked as if it was coming down very aggressive. We did see it coming down. We had one of two options. Either this price needed to end up coming all the way down to the main buyers, or we could see some sort of probe. And you can see that ended up happening. I think it was around Wednesday, where you can see, especially remember, since we focus on the 4-hour time frame, the 1-hour time frame is the time frame that will give us a lot more detail in terms of what ended up happening. But it seems I can't do that with seems that the data is also not here on the 1-hour time frame. Seems that data is disappearing, John. How is it looking on your side?
It's looking the same. Some of them, that I can see there is like some sort of an error. I think they have a data issue. Remember this happened, when was it? Was it like a couple of weeks ago when we also couldn't have this session?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, let's see. Here, the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar, we did have this for a selling opportunity. We did have these 3 areas to look for sells. We did see the price giving us a pullback during the week, and it did end up working out around Thursday. Unfortunately, it could not get all the way to the extreme area, but there was some small selling opportunities that were available on, as you can see, on Thursday. But we did want to see if the price breached and held below this area for us to look for more selling opportunities. But unfortunately, you can see the price just gave us a probe coming to the upside. So unfortunately, these are pairs that we're not going to be focusing on today. No real big boys are going to be focusing on that pair. So fortunately, here we have the euro against the US dollar, similar situation. Seems most of them, John, are giving this technical difficulty.
yeah.
Yeah, because all of them do seem to be having the same issue.
We're having a data issue. All right. It can end up being the review. Maybe we can look at the ones that possibly end up looking at this week. Gold and the Dow, we have issues with those ones. Maybe moving down the list. Sun doesn't seem to be too bad, isn't it? And also maybe the Dow Jones as well.
I think this one, let's see. This one does as well.
Still an issue.
No, I think it should be okay. It should be okay.
Okay. You can see last week and everything. Okay. All right. So we'll do the ones that we can. Then the ones that unfortunately we can't do much about, maybe you guys can end up possibly just taking note of the levels, and maybe you'll try to see whether you can end up getting some opportunities, because if there's a data issue, then unfortunately there's nothing much you can end up with. So maybe we can look at gold. So for gold last week, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten buying opportunities. You can see the 3 regions right there that we had pointed out. So on Monday, cost price was somewhere within this region here. We did want to see the market bounce to the upside. You can see that the market bounced off that region, went up. We didn't end up getting any buys. Of course, within here, then we definitely did need to manage within that region there. We did not. Then you can see that the market did react off there. I think it was on Thursday after the interest rate decisions on Wednesday. That's when the market did really end up really reacting off this region here, the downside. But you can see that moving into this week, the plan on this one is still more or less the same. So we'll possibly end up expecting to possibly see the market possibly take off from within this region to the upside. You can see that it's already done some sort of a probe within that region there. So what we want to see is whether we can get the market holding to the upside of this region. If we do, then there's a possibility there could be a really good buy. And I don't know how many pips is that from there going up to within that region. There must be a significant amount of pips.
160.
260. So that's quite significant. So we could expect to see that. But ideally, the plan is more or less the same as what we did end up having last week. So you could possibly also end up finding that if that price within this region right here is not good enough, could find the price coming back in within this region here. Maybe you could even find the market, maybe you're even attempting to break to the downside, possibly inciting more sellers to come into the market. Then maybe you could find the buy possibly working off that region at the bottom right there. But remember that that region at the bottom is the aggressive area. The market goes past that region to the downside and doesn't come back up, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on gold in terms of buys, but we could potentially end up looking for sells. But you also need to be very careful. Make sure that you watch out that the market really breaks to the downside and a nice strong breach, maybe when it comes back in attempts to break to the upside, ends up being unsuccessful, then maybe at that point in time, you could start to look for sells. If you end up looking for sells too early, then there's a possibility you could easily end up getting stopped out within that region. So just make sure you watch out for those 3 areas, but the plan is more or less the same. So I hope guys have taken note of that. I think we can end up moving on to the next one. Hopefully we have data on it. So this is the Dow Jones. So for the Dow, last week, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. So this one has been going up quite well for the last few weeks. And you can see the last week, it seemed like the buyers were somehow starting to end up losing some sort of steam. If you compare to how the market was moving previously and all that happened last week, the market being contained within that region there. So Monday price was here. We're either expecting price to come back down then possibly end up giving us some buying opportunities up down here. But also there was this where we're expecting the market to possibly break to the upside, hold, tempted to go up. But you can see that the market did react off that region quite aggressively. Of course, we did take buys here. You definitely needed to watch out, for top levels, especially where the market had gotten, the previous highs, the last time price was there. So for this one, this week, we're going to be still watching out to see whether we can get buys. We'll get the market coming back in within here. You can see that the sellers came down with 2 candles. The buyers have really struggled going up with this move right here. There's a possibility the sellers could possibly end up attempting to break their previous record, which currently stands within this region. Maybe if the market doesn't end up giving us a slope within that region there, we could possibly end up looking for a buy. At least the good thing about looking for the buy within here is that in case the market does end up getting into some sort of a range, at least the top of the range is somewhere within that region there. But also make sure you really watch out for this area here, because this could be true SNR. Consider the market has tapped there before, seems to be contained within that region right now. And you can see that the market has definitely probed this region to the upside. So you're not too sure what could happen when the market checks in within that area there. So where we just put this level, just make sure that you really do end up doing some good money management within that region there. So on the other hand, since price is here, of course, there's this level at the bottom right here where there's a possibility price could come back in, possibly even end up doing something like what we were expecting last week. But right now, since the price is here, we could possibly also end up expecting, if the market does break to the upside, it pulls back in within this region here, then you could potentially end up trying to see whether you could get some buying opportunities. So just make sure that you do watch out for possibly those 2 scenarios. But remember, you don't really want to be hitting your buys when the price is somewhere within here or somewhere within here, because this level right here could react, or maybe somewhere within here. And if you do end up attempting buys within this region here, you could easily end up getting into a squeeze, which you don't want to really end up signing up. So just make sure that you do watch out for those 2 things in case they do end up happening. So I hope guys are taking note of that. So that's pretty much it for gold and the Dow. So Mitch, I hope the rest of the guys' pairs are good.
Okay. I hope so too. So our focus now, at least right now, what we want to do is look for selling opportunities on the euro pairs. So mixing and matching that with the neutral pairs. So we'll start off with the euro against the British pound. So at least here we do have the level. So last week, our buyers, we did have this as a pair that we would look for buying opportunities, but unfortunately the buys did not work out. You can see the 3 areas that we had pointed out in the beginning of the week. The price did look as if we were within some buyers area. We did want to see whether or not the price is actually going to fall above that particular area. And if it did, we would have been able to look for those buying opportunities. But you can see during the week, around Tuesday, the price did continue coming down lower. We did have our extreme buyers area within this particular location. You can see the price did reach this area to the downside, but unfortunately, it held below. Once it did that, it did end up falling off our watch list, unfortunately. But since the bias this week has changed for both these pairs, our bias here today, or at least let me say this week, will be to look for selling opportunities. So we have identified these 3 new areas of interest where the sells could potentially work out from. Now, the price has come down, or at least has been coming down throughout the week. We do seem to be holding within this particular support and resistance area, but we have not necessarily gone by that far. Usually when there are these minor breaches, which you can see the price did look as if it's breached that area, and there does seem to be some small support and resistance area right here. Now, the fact that it's not been able to go any lower, there's a possibility we could end up getting the pullback actually coming in. So you might end up seeing something similar to this, where you could end up seeing the price coming all the way even to this extreme area, giving us some sort of probe within that particular location, and we should be able to look for those selling opportunities there. Now, if that doesn't happen, and you find that these buyers do end up really struggling to actually take the market anywhere, there's a possibility, because you can see the sellers right here could end up seeing the market possibly even reacting within those sellers, coming to the downside. And if we do get the price actually being able to break this area to the downside and holding below, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities. But you do need to be careful as the prices break to the downside. You can see that something similar has happened before, where the price looked as if it was breaking this area to the downside, but on the pullback, the price came up and held above it. So that level was not breached. So in order for us to confirm a level has been broken, we are able to get the price breaching and holding below, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities. on the euro against the British pound. So just watch out for these levels that we have pointed out. Right now, most likely we'll hopefully end up getting a pullback coming. So moving on to the next euro pair, which hopefully the pair is working out. So we do have the euro against the Australian dollar. Luckily, this is a pair that we did have last week, but last week we're looking for buying opportunities. This week we're looking for sells. Now, if you do notice the market structure, you can clearly tell that we are within a major range, bouncing between these two levels. So last week, the price was within the seller's area, and we did say we wanted to look for buying opportunities. You can see the price managed to come all the way down to the extreme area, giving us a small buying opportunity on Tuesday. But that was these sellers slowing down. This was the indication that the big boy buyers had come back in. And remember, we always say once you get signed, the big boys have come in, wait for a pullback. You can see this pullback managed to come in during the week, and on Thursday, that's when the price did manage to take off to the upside, coming all the way to the extreme area. But this week, our bias has switched, and we will be looking for selling opportunities. So we'll be focusing on ourselves based on these three areas right here. So we will be focusing on selling opportunities, still focusing on the range, but right now we're at the top of the range. So we can be able to look for selling opportunities at the top. But remember, you can be able to go down to a smaller time frame, possibly the 1 hour time frame, to wait to see if you can end up getting some sort of pullback. Remember, even when the price came down very aggressive, you can see even though the buyers came up, you started looking for your buys at the top right there. You could have easily been stopped out when the price was coming down before it managed to go into the upside. So it's a similar situation right now. You can see the market does look as if it has given us a probe. And you can see the last time the price did give us a probe, the market still did manage to pull back towards that SNR level before it did manage to continue going down lower. So hopefully we can see the same. So if the price can end up coming back within this particular area, giving us some sort of probe or price action signal, we should be able to look for selling opportunities, taking the price down lower. But watch out for this SNR level, because this market, or at least these buyers, could end up reacting. You can see the price has reacted from this area before. If you are able to get the price breaching and holding below, then you should be able to continue looking for yourselves, making sure to manage your trade at the bottom. But it's much better to look for those trading opportunities right there at the top of the game. So I hope that's clear on our game plan of what we're looking for on the euro against the Australian dollar this week. As we move on to the next euro pair, which is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. Now, on this currency pair, our bias on, at least we do not necessarily have this one last week, but we do have it this week. And our bias here is to look for selling opportunities. Now, the sells do look as if they could end up coming out pretty well, but we do have these three areas of interest that the sells could end up working out from. So we have the aggressive sellers area right here. So as long as we're holding below this area, our bias should be to look for selling opportunities. You can even see that the price did end up bouncing above. The sellers did end up reacting within this location. It attempted to go to the upside, giving us a probe. But you can see when it went to the upside, it did not hold above, making that a probe. And you can see with probes, the market could end up actually giving us some sort of pullback, still coming back to this area before we're able to see those selling opportunities. And if you do miss that sell and we're able to get the price breaching and holding below. So remember, the confirmation comes in when the pullback comes in, and you do see the price holding below, then you should be able to continue looking for those selling opportunities. But if the price doesn't come back up, because you can see right now we're within a buyer's area, so it's not a good place to look for the selling opportunities. You could end up either waiting for the price actually to breach the downside, and if you get the price holding below, then we should be good to go for a sell. And you can see the time that the price has attempted to break this area. You can see how many probes we've had. We have 1, 2, 3 probes right here. So there's a possibility we need this level to be broken fully. So that's the reason why on the pullback, you need to see that price holding below. And if it does, then you will end up finding a very nice selling opportunity you can end up getting on the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So I hope that's clear on the euro against the New Zealand dollar. As we move on to the next euro pair, which is the euro against the Canadian dollar. Now, this is a currency pair we did have last week, and last week we were looking for buying opportunities. Unfortunately, the buys did not fully work out. Remember, we did have these three areas that we did have highlighted. So our game plan, initially when the price was coming down, we did want to see whether or not the price was able to come all the way down to the extreme area for us to look for a buy. But you can see during the week, the price managed to come up, and we did end up seeing some buyers coming back to challenge this particular area. But we did end up pointing out we needed to see whether or not these sellers right here, when they were coming down, because you can see we did have some sort of game plan right here, but we wanted to see the price come down lower, give us some sort of pullback before it actually ends up going up. But we wanted to see a slowdown of the sellers. But when the price came up, you can see how aggressive the market came down. We did have some high impact news, which we'll end up having a look at what news we'll have this week. But there was that high impact news that came in on Thursday, bringing this price down lower. So unfortunately, it did bring in a bit of more euro weakness before the price did manage to come all the way to the extreme area. So we did not necessarily jump in on this buy just based on how aggressive these buyers came in. Sorry, the sellers came in, but that was the trade idea that we did have. So this week, now the fact that the euro fundamentals have switched, or at least the euro bias has switched, so we will be looking for selling opportunities this week. So we'll focus on these three areas that we do have. So aggressive sellers right here at the top. So as long as we're holding below that area, our bias should be to look for selling opportunities. So you can see based on how the market has been coming down, you can see we've got a pullback. The sellers have attempted to come down. Right now, we are attempting to actually get a pullback coming in, which is technically what we want. Based on the bigger time frame, we could end up easily finding this price giving us some sort of pullback, some sort of pullback coming in. Possibly, we end up coming all the way to the extreme area, even possibly giving us some sort of probe within that location before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. Or we could end up finding the market reacting still within this seller's area, because you can see these sellers have reacted from before. They could end up reacting from that area again. The buyers don't necessarily look as strong as the sellers who came in. So if we do end up getting that pullback coming in, similar situation, a probe within this location, then we should be able to look for those selling opportunities as well. Now, there is that possibility, right, where the price, even though you can see we've been coming down, we are technically within a small support and resistance area. You can see these sellers who came down. This is technically the support and resistance area. So I can remove that trade so to make it think a bit clearer. You can see the buyers are coming up. Right now, we're within a smaller SNR. So there could be, you might end up even finding some sort of reaction coming in. And if the market is able to break this area to the downside and hold below, we should be able to continue looking for those selling opportunities on the euro against the Canadian dollar. So I hope that's clear on the game plan of what we're looking at for this week. So as we move on to the last euro pair that we do have, so luckily at least the pricings are still there. So we should be okay. So these are brand new entered on our watch list, and our bias here is to look for selling opportunities. You can see the way this market has been coming down lower, lower. And right now the sellers did seem as if they're struggling within an area, and we are starting to get pullback. So we're fully aware that the main sellers who started pushing down are right here at the top. You can see these are main sellers area where whenever the price gets towards that area, these are the sellers responsible for bringing this price down lower. So you can see we also have another major SNR right here. These are levels that was an area of support. You can see how many times it's held, even giving us some sort of probes. Right now, it looks as if we did get a proper breach to the downside. So right now, as the price is pulling back here, remember, we want to see the details of how this market is giving us this pullback, or possibly on the 1 hour time frame. So those who have come to the intermediate class, we did show you exactly how to read those pullbacks. So we should be able to hopefully get some sort of nice selling opportunities within this particular area. So if we do end up getting some sort of probe, seeing some signs of big boy sellers, then we should be able to look for our selling opportunities there. But be aware that there's a possibility, since the market needs to incite many people to look for a particular direction. Since we're looking for sales, maybe there are not enough sellers right here, and we need a few more sellers, or at least buyers, so that we can end up actually looking for those sales. We might end up finding the price actually going to the upside. So you could end up seeing some sort of pullback all the way to the extreme area. By the time that the price approaches such an area, most people will stop thinking of it as a sell and start looking for it as a buy. And if that's what the big boys want, and we do have enough buyers, then we should be able to end up finding a very nice selling opportunity within the extreme area. So just watch out for those levels on the euro against the Swiss franc. And I guess that's it for all the euro pairs. So you can see we've mixed and matched the euro with all the pairs on the neutral side. So right now, we're going to move on to the yen pairs. So hopefully these yen pairs have started styling up. If not, yeah, I think we're good. I think, John, the levels should be okay.
All right. So for the yen pairs, last week, wanted to see weakness on the yen pairs. And this week, we're still expecting maybe to see weakness, but just a bit. From the numbers, it looks like it's just slightly stronger than last week. But ideally, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get sales. So ideally, we're going to be looking for buying opportunities on all the yens. The good thing about the yen is that all of them are to the right, so that the counter currency pairs. So starting off with this one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one last week, You can see what the game plan was on Monday. Price was somewhere here. We did want to see the market break above this region right here to the upside, which unfortunately couldn't. You can see the number of attempts that the buyers had, but the sellers came through, pushed the market down quite aggressively. It seemed like the market did break to the downside. Then you can see that this must have been on Friday, and the market did really end up coming back up quite aggressively. So for this one, not the clearest of buying opportunities last week, but the game plan, I think, is more or less almost going to be the same. So right now it seems like price is somewhere here. It's some sort of a gap that's happening, but we'll wait and see. Either we can get the market maybe attempting to come back in. If it doesn't and it ends up being unsuccessful, then that's a good thing. It means that we've gotten a breach of structure. You can see that the market was in some sort of a range between this, somewhere within that region at the top and somewhere within here. This is just a massive probe. So let's see if we can get the market possibly bouncing off that region to the upside. Alternatively, if the market does end up coming back into the downside of this region and actually holds below, there's a possibility price could be coming back down to the bottom of the range. It could possibly be looking for some prices within this region right here. And you could find that after that, maybe the market might completely end up taking off. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. But also remember, you could look for more conservative buying opportunities at the top, somewhere within this area here, but you'll definitely have to wait and see whether you can first get a breach of structure to the upside. Then at least on the pullback, you could possibly try and see whether the market could possibly pull back in there. But right now, our best bet is this first option right here, where let's see what the sellers do. Maybe this seller somewhere within this region right here might be able to push the market down. If they do, then we'll see what happens. If the market holds within this region here, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities there. So hopefully we've taken note of that, but the levels are more or less the same as what we did end up having last week. So I think we can move on to the next one. And one thing you'll end up realizing is that there's some really good correlation that's happening on the yen pairs. So for this one, this is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one last week, similar situation, looking for buyers, but unfortunately the buyers just couldn't take off. You can see the market broke to the upside, this region here, but the buyers really struggled. After that, the sellers came back. You can see that they pushed the market to the downside. The market couldn't go back above this region right here for us to look for another buy. You can see that the market really bounced off that region quite aggressively. Same time, I think, with the rest of the yen pairs. So this one, unfortunately, there wasn't much of a buy last week, but let's see this week what happens. So right now, you can see that the price is back in within this region, almost the same area where it was last week on Monday. So we'll be waiting to see whether we can actually end up getting a breach to the upside. Similar situation to what we were expecting last week. So yeah, you can just move it there. Or we could potentially end up finding maybe the market might actually end up reacting to the downside. So you can also end up moving that on niche as well. It's the exact same plan as last week. Levels are the same. Price is back exactly within the same region. So hopefully we get the market maybe pulling back in within here, because you can see that it also looks like the market is in some sort of a range with some sort of a probe that's happened here, massive probe. So the best buying opportunity with where price is right now still remains to be somewhere within here, at the bottom of the range. Just make sure that you watch out for that. But if the market breaks below the red SNR, then unfortunately you'll have to be on standby, no trade unless the market does end up coming back in. So I think we can look at the next one, which is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list, but you can see some good correlation. It does almost look similar to the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So you can see this one is also somewhere at the top of a range. So we'll either have to wait and see if we can get the market breaking to the upside. Hopefully those buyers can sustain the momentum. The market comes back in within this region, maybe even probes within there, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities there within this particular region right here. But also watch out, could find maybe those sellers might actually react. They could push the market back to the bottom of the range. Might even find the market maybe probing within this region right here before, the buyers do possibly end up coming back quite aggressively. Or these buyers do end up coming back alive, because you can see how aggressive they're coming in. So just make sure you watch out for that. Remember the red scenario, the market breaks to the downside, wait and see if it can come back in. There's a high possibility you could also find the market coming back in within here, because if this is a probe Lots of guys are hitting buys now. Quite a number might actually get stopped out within this region right here. So there's a high possibility price could come back in. So wait and see what happens. But also, if the buyers do end up keep going, then I guess we'll have to end up looking for the buying opportunities, maybe somewhere within there. So I think that's pretty clear. So I hope guys have taken note of that. So I guess we can move on to the next yen pair, which is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, last week we were watching out for buys as well, but can't see the three regions that we had pointed out and what we were expecting. On Monday, price was here. We're expecting to possibly see if we could get the market coming back in within this region. But unfortunately, it's like the sellers came down, but the buyers disappeared, because after the market broke to the upside within this particular region here, we have expected to possibly see the market holding to the upside, but the sellers came in quite aggressive, which is something similar with what we've seen with the rest of the yen pairs. But you can see that the market came down, bounced off this area. This must have been on Friday. So there must have been some prices where the market was looking for down within that particular region. Then you can see that this one did actually end up working out more or less like towards the very end of the week. So for this one, this week, the levels are the same. The market seems to have moved a lot, but more or less playing within the same region. So let's see what happens. You can see last week the sellers within here did react. They pushed the market down. Don't look for your buying opportunities right now. Either wait and see if you can get the market coming back in within here. If you do end up getting some sort of a pullback, you could possibly end up attempting your buying opportunities within there. And this one does seem like it has quite a number of options. So there's that option there. Right now, since we have a level within here, maybe Mitch can put a level here. If we have some sort of an SNR somewhere within that region, just looking at what's happened, you could possibly also end up finding that the market could possibly end up breaking this region to the upside. On the pullback, if you read the pullback on the smaller time frame, which is the 1 hour time frame, you could possibly end up grabbing a buy somewhere within this particular region right here. So just make sure that if you're going to be looking for the buy, look for the buy on the other side of this SNR right here. But when the market is holding below, the sellers within this region more or less are still in control. So you need to make sure that you're a bit patient, watching out for that. Now, it doesn't mean that the price can come back in all the way till down here. It still can. Just keep an eye out for that. Let's say if the sellers do end up reacting quite aggressively like they did last week, there's a possibility price could still come back in within that region and still move to the upside. But right now, based on where the price is, our two best options end up being somewhere within this region right here. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. And of course, watch out for the correlation. The yen pairs, if you see one moving, try and have a look at the others. You could find that maybe it could be something to do with the yen pairs moving together as a group. So just make sure that you really watch out for that correlation. And you could get a handful of pips by just using correlation. So I guess we can look at the next one and the last one, which is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So this one is a new entrant on our watch list, but you can see that all of them have similar characteristics. So, the massive moves coming down, then all of them are going up together. They're all back within areas of resistance. Similar situation with this one. So for this one, it's either the market is going to be breaking above this region to the upside. This bar can sustain the momentum on the pullback, and hopefully we should get a nice strong breach. If we get the market just breaking and holding just above this region within this area here, don't look for your buying opportunities. There's a possibility price might just easily end up coming back in. And these are the times when many guys usually end up getting caught up. So if you get a nice strong breach to the upside, the market pulls back in, make sure that you watch out. If you get the buys within here, make sure that you watch out for the highest level that the market is going to get up to. That level right there might actually end up being an area that you will need to watch out for, because you never know if the market is going to form some sort of a double top to the upside. So just make sure that you really watch out for that level if it reaches within that area. Now, on the other hand, what you could possibly also end up waiting for, since right now we're within a region where we do have sellers, consider they've reacted before, they can't do it again. Give them the benefit of doubt. If the market comes back in somewhere within this region here, there's a possibility you could also end up looking for your buying opportunities down within this area here. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So I don't know, Mitch, if you got that, but did I end up losing you? Right, all right. So let's see what happens in those three areas. So I guess that's pretty much it for the yen pair.
So, thanks, John. At least we've looked at the euro and the yen pairs. Remember, we're looking to sell the Japanese yen, the -4 last week with the -5. So it's still weak, but maybe not as weak as it was the previous week. So let's just see what happens during this week. So right now, we'll move on to the last currency pairs, which are the US dollar pairs, and we'll start to mix and match them with all the pairs on the neutral side. So starting off with the British pound against the US dollar. So this is a brand new entry in our watch list, and our bias here is to look for selling opportunities on this pair. You can see the way the market initially was going to the upside. The sellers seem to be coming in. The buyers attempted to go up, but you can see how aggressive the sellers were last week as the price did manage to come down lower. So here, or at least this week, our buyers will be focusing on these three areas to look for these selling opportunities. So can see the main seller, or at least the reason why we're selling, is we're relying on this big seller right here. So as long as this seller is holding the market and it's the one who pushed it down, then we should still be looking for selling opportunities. So right now you can see the way the sellers came down, reacted within some buyers area. We have gotten a pullback where the price does seem to be holding within this particular SNR level. So in order for us to look for selling opportunities, we could end up finding that sell working out from here, where you could end up seeing some sort of very nice probe coming in. You see big boy sellers coming in, then you might end up being able to find that selling opportunity coming in within this fast SNR. But be aware that if the market, or at least we don't necessarily have enough strength to actually go to the downside, we might need to come up higher, to come back all the way to the main sellers right here. By the time the price approaches these main sellers, most people will start looking for buying opportunities, and everyone would have forgotten about the sell. But at least you guys are part of the Afriforex squad right here. So once that happens, or at least once the price gets a pullback towards there, you do see the price slowing down. And remember, do focus on multiple time frames. So have a look at it on a 1 hour time frame. See how the buyers are coming in. Once we do see some sort of slowdown within that location, we should be able to look for selling opportunities as well. Now, I hope that's clear on the British pound against the US dollar. As we move on to the next US dollar pair. But be aware that there is a number of fundamental news that we do end up having during the week, which most likely will correlate, or at least you'll find that when the news events are coming out, you'll find that the prices are within very nice buyers or sellers areas, which could end up giving us some nice opportunities. So moving on to the Australian dollar against the US dollar, here our bias is to look for selling opportunities. Remember, we're relying on US dollar strength, and that US dollar strength, you can really see the way it came in, and similar correlation with the British pound against the US dollar. So in this situation, our bias here is to look for sells. Now you can see, even though the way the sellers have come down, we've approved a very strong bias area. So we don't want to jump in on any selling opportunities just yet. But you can see this support and resistance area that was holding for quite a while. And the sellers did manage to breach this area to the downside. So we do know as long as we're holding below this main seller right here, our bias will be to look for selling opportunities. Right now, we are on our pullback phase, so hopefully we can end up getting that pullback coming in. There's a possibility we could end up seeing some sort of reaction within this first problem area before we're able to look for selling opportunities within this area. But if not, could easily find that the markets could end up being quite correlated with the other US dollar pairs. So if you do see this level not reacting, and you see the correlation, even the same way we've looked at the British pound against the US dollar, you don't see any reaction there, you can end up waiting for the price to come back towards the main seller for you to look for yourself. But even if you look for yourselves at the top there, watch out for this area of support and resistance. Remember, right now, it's a resistance area because the price, we are currently below that price. But as soon as the price goes above it, remember, this ends up becoming a support, which is also a problem area. So do make sure you do some trade management within those locations. So hope that's clear on the Australian dollar against the US dollar. To move on to the next US dollar pair, which is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Now, in this currency pair, last week, our bias was to look for selling opportunities. At least the same situation is still there today. So last week, we did have these three areas, but unfortunately, the price did not manage to get all the way to the extreme main sellers. As you can see, the market attempted to go to the upside during the week. It was holding above. It was around Wednesday or Thursday, when that news events for the US dollar, bringing in that strength, did come in, and we can see the same correlation happening with all these pairs. Right now, it did look as if we're attempting to break the support and resistance area to the downside. So we'll be focusing on these three areas. Similar situation, or at least similar areas that we did end up having for last week. So since the price is still respecting these three areas, so right now, it looks as if the price could potentially be giving us a probe. So one of two things. If the price is able to actually come back in and hold below, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities. This could end up being a very nice area for us to look for those sells. And you can see the same area that all the other US dollar pairs we've looked at are. But if this level doesn't hold, you could end up finding, and the price, let's say, goes to the upside and it actually holds above, then chances are we could end up coming all the way to the extreme area, maybe needing to incite a few more people to look for those buying opportunities before we're able to look for those sells to take the price down lower. So just watch out for these three areas, or at least wait to see how the market ends up reacting. But remember, we do have a lot of correlation coming in with the US dollar, with that US dollar strength. And right now, they're all on the pullback. So the story for all of them ends up being the same. So once you see the slowdown, or at least the bias, or at least the pullback, let's say, it starts to slow down on one of them, have a look at the other and try and figure out if the story ends up being the same on all of them. You could end up finding some very nice trading opportunities using correlation. So I hope those levels are clear on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. As we move on to the next US dollar pair we do have. Now, this is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. Brand new entry on our watch list, and here our bias is to look for buying opportunities. Now, most people will be looking at the way the price is coming down lower, not necessarily thinking that the buy is actually active, but the buy is starting to show us some good signs that could actually end up working out. You can see the way the sellers were coming down, pushing to the downside. This main seller pushed all the way down here. You can see how aggressive the buyers came in. Now look at the attempt of this seller who were relying on the way he's coming down. His attempt to come down lower managed to get to here. So if you're looking at the records, the first time he managed to get to here. So a very nice push to the downside. But on the next push, they got just till here. So a bit weaker than the last time. The next push, you can see, keeps on getting higher, higher, and higher. So right now, it does seem that these sellers are starting to really slow down and the buyers are possibly transitioning or at least coming back in. So we'll be focusing on these three pairs where we could end up finding some very nice buying opportunities from. So right now, even though the price looks as if it's broken this area to the upside, there is a risk that you could end up finding that this is not necessarily good enough, where you could end up finding the price still giving us a pullback. Because remember, right now, we do seem to be in some sort of range, bouncing between these two levels. So you could still see, we see the price coming back all the way down here before you're able to see your buying opportunity to take the price up higher. Now, if the market is able to actually pretend it's going to the downside, so if you see the price coming down, reaching to the upside and holding above, that will give us now a proper confirmation that these sellers right here who have been pushing the market and holding the market are fully done, and we can be able to look for buying opportunities, but we do need to make sure we manage our trades within the next problem areas. Now, if the price comes down lower, breaches and holds below the red SNR, remember the probability of the trade working out does go down and it will fall off our watch list at that point in time. So I hope that's clear in the game plan of what we're looking for on the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. As we look at the last currency pair we do have, which is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. Now, last week, we didn't have this pair and we were looking for selling opportunities. You can see the three levels we had pointed out where the sells could work out from. Initially, the market looked as if it was a pullback or at least coming to the upside. Did not necessarily get all the way to the extreme. We did end up seeing a slowdown. Remember, those guys who have come for the intermediate class, you can be able to see how the buyers came up. Sellers gave 100% pullback. The buyers did struggle. Before the sellers did manage to come back in. So there was a selling opportunity during the week. The market did manage to get all the way to the buyer's area and did end up giving us some very aggressive reaction. Now, luckily, this week, we will be looking for buying opportunities, and it's a good sign based on the fact that these sellers do look as if they've really slowed down. The fact that they've not even really been able to make a new low, and look at how aggressive they came down the first time, and look at how they were coming down and they were pushing to the downside. Very choppy. And look at right now how the buyers have come up. Similar situation, they've really come up quite aggressive. So our bias this week is to look for buying opportunities. We pretty much have the same areas that we did have last week to look for the sells, but this week at least look for these buying opportunities. Right now, we're so close to within this support and resistance area, so we don't want to jump in on those buying opportunities just yet. So we could end up finding one of two things. Could end up easily seeing the price breaching this area to the upside. If we do see the price holding above, then we should be good to go with our buying opportunity once we do get confirmation that the price is holding above the seller's area. However, since we're within a seller's area and you can see the market has given us 100% pullback, could end up seeing the sellers coming down, struggling, possibly attempting to come down lower within this area. We do have a support and resistance area right here, where you could end up seeing some sort of growth happening within that location for us to look for our buying opportunity. Now, even though we are going to be targeting all the way to the top, do make sure you do some trade management once you get to these resistance areas, because these are definitely areas that are going to end up giving us some sort of problems. So just make sure you do end up managing your trade within those locations. So I hope that's clear. That's it for all the currency pairs, and I hope the US dollar against the Swiss franc is clear. So looking at our watch list, remember this is going to be our watch list for this week. We've looked at the euro and the yen as well as the US dollar, and we have mixed and matched that with all the pairs on the neutral side. Now, for most of you, you'll start realizing that these trades start moving either on Tuesday, sometimes on Wednesday, sometimes on Thursday, and you realize it's very much in line with the way the fundamentals are actually structured. So what we'll do, ideally, when we end up looking at the more longer-term timeframes, we'll come and we'll only focus on the high-impact news. And when we look at what high-impact news we have for this week, you can see today we have some Euro CPI news, some very high impact news. So there might be a bit of volatility on the Euro today. You can see Tuesday, we do have, so at least tomorrow, and I've seen a number of fundamentals, at least pairs that we've had a look at, even when we're reviewing the pairs last week, they end up either moving on, sometimes on Monday, not necessarily much, but a lot of them will end up moving either on Tuesday, Wednesday, when there's a lot of news, or on Thursday. Now, this week, we do have a lot of high impact news. Tomorrow, we have some interesting news for the Australian dollar. So you do end up expecting a lot of volatility there. You can see all these news events that are coming out. Tuesday, we have a lot. Wednesday, not as much. Thursday, we have a lot more as well. You can see the British pound is also going to be announcing the interest rate news as well. So expect a lot of volatility at that. And this being the first Friday, this coming week, the first Friday of the month, do end up expecting, do have some non-farm payrolls that are going to come in. So this week, we will be expecting a lot of volatility in the markets. And when we see high impact news like this, it's actually a good thing because many people will actually be trading, which in turn will give us very many opportunities throughout the week. So it's at least giving us those chances to end up making some money. When you don't see any news, that's the time you should be worried. You don't necessarily know who you're trading against, but at least when there's a lot of news, you know there are many people in the market giving us some nice opportunities. So I guess that's it for me. Unless, John, is there anything else we've missed out?
Yeah, I think that's good in terms of information. So hopefully you guys have taken note of everything that we've discussed. I think we can end up looking at the Q&A. So I see some 2 questions there. I see Pascal Kalungu, good to see you, asking good morning. Which class do you teach? I think you're asking how to draw the lines or identify areas of interest. We normally touch on that during the intermediate. I think is it the first or the second session when we end up talking about the aggressive and conservative areas? I think on the first session, session 1. So we normally end up discussing that during the intermediate class. So if you can make sure that at least you do end up joining us for that, or at least even if you can't end up joining us for the intermediate when it normally happens at Scope, we're planning to see whether we can end up having an online intermediate sometime soon. So when that does end up happening, make sure that you sign up for that. That's a class where we normally go through that stuff. So I hope that's what you're Pascal. So I see Metrin. Good to see you as well. Metrin, I was thinking you're saying, morning, John and Mitch. Thank you for the weekly swing analysis. It's been really, really helpful. And I appreciate your support. I had placed my request with Naomi on Dow Jones. Probably she has shared or not, but my request is you kindly consider to analyze for me Dow Jones on daily analysis kindly. Okay, we can see what we can end up doing in that regard. I don't think it's a request that you can definitely say a no to, but we can definitely end up looking into and see whether we can end up adding that onto the daily analysis. So we'll take that into consideration. All right, so I guess, Mitch, unless there's anything else you're seeing on your end, from my end, I think pretty much covered everything.
Pretty much it.
All right. So guys, remember also, if anything is not too clear, unfortunately today due to some data issues, had a bit of a shaky start, but at least we were able to get all the way to the very end. If something is not clear, remember you can always go onto our YouTube. This video is going to be up later on by evening. It's definitely going to be on our YouTube. So you can definitely watch and rewatch. Maybe there are some things that just pass you, but ideally if you end up rewatching, the good thing about rewatching is that you can definitely even end up adding the speed, maybe like 1.5 or something, where we end up talking faster. You can watch it quicker. You can end up referring to it even in the course of the week, what analysis was there. If you missed out on a couple of screenshots here and there, you can definitely end up going there and watching. And it doesn't really hurt to end up watching and rewatching and really learning. And of course, if you end up watching them week after week, you'll definitely start to realize a couple of things based on how we analyze the charts and how the markets normally tend to move. So just make sure that you watch out for that. If you go to YouTube, search for Afriforex, remember to subscribe and also like and also watch whatever other content you have there. So I guess that's pretty much it. Next week, also one announcement. We might not end up having the weekly swing. We might be on a break next week. So, but we'll definitely let you know on our Telegram channel. In case things do end up changing, we'll update you. So just make sure that you also join the weekly swing Telegram channel. In case we're not going to be having the webinar next week, which is highly likely that you're not, we'll definitely send you the information there. So at least can try and see what opportunities we can end up getting next. So I guess that's pretty much it from us. It's been great having you guys here. So I guess we'll see you guys in the next episode. And of course, remember you can always contact us if you do have issues with your trading. You can always try to see how best we can end up helping you. Our contact details should also be there on the chat box. So with that, happy trading guys, and bye for now. The pitch plays you.